Good morning, good evening, good night, depending on which part of the world you are. Welcome to another ISA webinar. Today we have a very special webinar about the ISA English oral exams. I'm sorry for the echo. That was because I'm also in YouTube. So as I was telling you, we have three very important persons and friends that work with us since 1994 when we start the ISA English oral exams. Our theme today is Let's Talk ISA English oral exams and introduction. And we have three of our examiners that are from Canada, Alberta. We have Susan Duska. She has a wide experience in all areas of theater performance, vocal coaching and teaching. She is on faculty at the Conservatory at Mount Royal University and maintains a busy schedule teaching private and group lessons as well as theory classes and adjudicating across the country. We have Vincent Hanlon that joined the team of ISA Oral English Examiners in 2013. He's a retired medical doctor whose first degree at university was in English literature, majoring in poetry and drama. And we have Jim Dobbin, that is a full-time instructor of drama at the University of Calgary Campus. Wealth of experience as a theater practitioner, teacher, examiner, and adjudicator. So today we are going to have an overview about the exam and what we are trying to do, looking for our anniversary next year, our 70th anniversary of the association, is to expand this ISA Oral English exam and try to reach not only to Uruguay, Argentina, Latin America, but also to countries that their first language is not English. So I encourage you to ask questions and to profit from these three incredible people and examiners. And I will give the word to them. Thank you very much for being on the other side of the screen.
Thank you, Edgardo. People hear me? Yes. Hello. Oh, I don't hear you, Susan. Jim, are you mute? Ah, there. Jim is not muted.
I wasn't sure you wanted us up yet, but hello.
Okay. Yeah. So we're going to begin. I'm Vincent. I'm going to take us through a few slides, and Jim and Susan are going to add some additional comment to these pictures that you're seeing. So it is about the oral English exams today, and we want to just outline for those who perhaps don't know about the series of exams what makes them up. And we'll go to the next slide, Edgardo. So as Edgardo said, we're from Canada, and we have been coming down to Argentina for different lengths of time. We live in the western part of the country, close to the mountains, and this is this particular scene is from a international park that straddles the border between Montana in the United States and southern Alberta, not too far from where each of us live. Just a little agenda for us today. Edgardo has indicated a number of participants, primarily from South and Latin America today, and we welcome you all to this presentation, and we invite your questions. We'll probably do 30 to 40 minutes of presentation and leave another 20 minutes or so for questions. We look forward to those questions. We have a little bit of history, and I'll turn that over. Susan, do you want to speak to the history of the oral examinations?
Sure.
How they began?
Yeah, sure, no problem. So my understanding of how the exams began is that in the mid-1990s, I think it was when the ISA was actually being established in Argentina. Jim McClellan, who was very much involved with that, was living in Buenos Aires, and his wife, Jackie, is a speech arts and drama person who helped to establish these exams to help test the skills in oral English that students in Buenos Aires might have. It's based on fundamentals of speech arts and drama, which are all about presentation, interpretation, and really understanding the work that you are doing. And through Jackie's work and then subsequent other work, the 4 levels of the exams became established. And I think, I don't actually know who the first examiners were, but I know that I started coming to Argentina in about 2007, and have been really enjoying seeing the students progress in terms of their knowledge and understanding of poetry, and then working through all the other levels of the exams and building their skills as they go. We make a few modifications to the exams on a regular basis, because we find, students change a little bit, and there's certain things that that maybe we want to focus on a bit more, but they've been very successful in Buenos Aires, and now we have them in Uruguay, and we just look forward to the whole program growing. So.
Okay, thank you, Susan. So that's the history. We're going to go through say a little bit about each of the 4 exams, the distinctive features of each one, and then there are a couple of shared elements, those being sight reading and the conversation, the spontaneous conversation that's incorporated into each exam. We also show you, give you an example of what a student evaluation form looks like. We do evaluations during the exam, which we then give to the student for their, well, we actually don't give it to the student, we give it back to the coordinator, who then makes sure that it makes its way to the parents of the student. And we also do a final report summarizing the examination for that year with things, comments on what was particularly well done, and where things might go moving forward in each of the areas for each level of the examination. And that's basically that's going to be the sort of the formal part of the presentation, and we'll get right into that now. Now, we've had our history lesson, so we can continue. So, Susan, I think let you speak to the primary exam. I'll speak to one. Jim is going to, and then we'll all weigh in on the advanced exam.
Sure, sounds good. Excellent. So often for most students, the first exam that they take for the ISA oral English exam is the primary exam, and it's each of these exams is actually planned around the age of the student as well as their abilities. So for the primaries, we are hoping that the students are 8 or 9 years old, sometimes 10. It sort of does depend how long they've been studying English for. And one of the requirements for this exam is that they memorize and speak a short poem. In addition to speaking the poem, they need to have a short conversation with the examiner that is usually about very basic kinds of things, like how old are you, how many people are in your family, those sorts of questions. And then we do a little bit of sight reading, where we have several pieces prepared. The student is given a moment to look over the piece and read it over to themselves, and then when they're ready, they can stand and read the poem, or sorry, excuse me, read the sight reading piece out loud to the examiner. So these are all really important elements of the exam. The conversation portion of it, of course, with learning English, we're looking at the ability that the student has to listen to the questions that we ask, to understand the questions, and then to respond appropriately. And if they are able to ask us a question too, then we're often very excited because we really can have a conversation. For the memorization of the short poem, it's these are very short poems. They're not long at all. Why do we ask that a student should A, memorize something, and B, why should it be poetry? Well, the memorization aspect of it is quite important because it allows the student to become intimately familiar with the piece. I know in some of the schools, the students are memorizing lots of different poems all the time, and then they have an opportunity to choose the one that they would like to present for the exam. We really like that approach because then the student is able to have a variety of literature that they've been exposed to, and they can really find the piece that connects for themselves. The poetry itself, poetry is full of wonderful language, and by memorizing and speaking the poem, students learn about figurative language. They learn about how words can work together, and rhythm and rhyming and all sorts of techniques that help enhance the way our language sounds. They also have an opportunity to learn about words that they might not know. So poetry can often be a little bit convoluted, and so they do need to take the time to think about, well, what is the poet actually trying to say here? And when we're looking at the presentation of the poetry, it's not just a case of memorizing it and then saying it with the rhythm and the rhyme. It's really telling the story of the poem and seeing how they can share and communicate those ideas and that experience with the examiner. So we are looking for a variety of expression. We're looking for a variety of rate and pause, that they really are understanding what they're saying and willing and able to communicate it with us. And this is sort of laying a foundation for future skills that they then get to explore in the later exams. So that's just a brief overview of the primary exam and what we're looking for.
Sure. Why don't we'll have a look at the next slide, Edgardo. There are a number of poems listed here. So this gives participants an idea of what kinds of pieces, and many of you will be familiar with the kinds of poetry that you're introducing your students to, perhaps. These are all for kids probably 10 years of age and under, although many of them also appeal to adults, just because they bring back memories of our own childhood. You can see a number of authors. A.A. Milne may be familiar, Eleanor Farjeon, Dennis Lee, one of our Canadian poets, and person who has been quite popular. Well, there's Roald Dahl there, the lion, but also Jack Prelutsky. And the exams often take place in October. And so the next slide, Edgardo, we have an example of a poem that's been very popular over the years. And this is Haunted House by Jack Prelutsky. You can see 16 lines, regular configuration of rhymes and things, and the students, many students have chosen to do this this particular poem.
And I could just talk to that a little bit for a moment, Vincent, if you like.
Yeah,
so when we look when we look at this poem, Haunted House, so the students have an easy connection with the piece because they can relate to the time of year, they can relate to maybe being afraid of ghosts and goblins. So it gives them some feelings and emotions that they're able to explore while they're telling us this poem. And other things that they should be thinking about is, you know, where is the punctuation in the poem, and where are appropriate places for me to breathe, and how can I change the feeling in this piece. In the third verse, we have the part where they have, "Come join the fun," they shout. So that's an opportunity for the students to think about, well, who is speaking that, and how is it going to sound, and what can they do that might be a little bit different with that little portion of the poem. This has a very heavy rhyme scheme to it, and that can often be a challenge. And so it's always interesting to see how well the students are able to really tell the story and convey the idea of the poem without getting too trapped in the rhyme and rhythm, which we have a lot of in a lot of poetry for young people. Thanks, Vincent.
Okay, yeah, thanks. Okay, we'll go on to the junior. The junior exam is usually, most of the kids that do the junior exam are 10 and 11-year-old students, again, depending on how long they've been studying English. They may be a little bit older than that. And the significant part of the junior exam for the kids is to create a past experience. Of this next, here's one of my students from a few years ago, and he was talking about golf. He and his father were enthusiastic golfers, and he wanted to talk about the past experience of being in a tournament with his dad, and it looks like they got a second prize from his certificate there. In addition to actually speaking about the experience, we encourage the students to bring in some artifact, a photograph perhaps, related to their experience that they can incorporate into their speech, or after they finish their speech, they can share that photograph with the examiner. So the sports are a very common topic. The next slide, let's have a look at that, Edgardo. Here, people may recognize quite an interesting replica. This is Pope Francis, in case you don't recognize the man. And I found this this in the market in Argentina, in Buenos Aires, when I was there. And it reminded me of one of my students who, this was a travel experience. Travel experiences, again, very popular topics for the 10 and 11-year-olds. And this was about one young student who had been fortunate enough actually to travel to Italy, Rome, and she and her family had an audience with the Pope. So that's a rather special experience, and why it lives in my memory, I guess. But we often hear about kids going to Orlando, to Disney World, visiting relatives in the United States, going to other countries in Latin America, South America, visiting family in Brazil, or going for their vacation time. Reminded me, I'm wondering how many of the students and their families are going to be able to make it to Punta del Este this January and February, given what's happening all around us. But we often heard about kids traveling. Jim or Susan, any of the topics that seem to stand out in your memory? Kids that had things to say, interesting things to say?
You're right that we get a lot of travel related past experiences. I think the important thing that we're looking for in the past experience is again that it's some event that they can very much relate to, and are happy to share with us. And I think that travel is one of those things that stands out in children's minds. I think we had one once about a young girl who really liked to cook with her grandmother. And I remember her telling me about that experience and just what she got out of spending time with her grandmother and the things they like to do together. So it doesn't have to be something really exotic or expensive that they do. It just has to be something that stands out for them. So, yeah.
Yeah, I'm reminded illness and injury are another
Oh, yeah.
popular topic. Near drownings, lacerations, head injuries. We hear a lot about bye-bye appendix was a lovely title for one experience in the last couple of years. And also school, coming to a new school. Kids often talk about school, some aspect of school, an experience, finding a new friend, pets within the family household. Another again memorable talk was when I asked the young fellow what he was going. I'd meet him at the door, come in. I'd say, "What are you going to be talking about?" He said, "I'm going to talk about my dad's wedding." Ah, okay. So you realize that his dad was remarrying about their experience.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a junior. Let's move on to the intermediate exam, and Jim will take us through a bit of what happens in the intermediate exam.
Yes, the intermediate exam is similar to what Vincent and Susan have been talking about with the younger ones. What's distinctive about this is that the student has to write a speech. And I find they're at the age 13 or 14 years old when they're starting to be socially conscious and socially aware. So they want to talk about quite big things, and they want to talk about world issues and political and social issues, which is very interesting because they really, at that age have a keen sense of justice and right and wrong and so on. So we encourage them to write about something that really speaks to them, obviously. And the most successful ones are the ones who write about something that means something to them personally. It may be still like, for example, one girl wrote about addiction and the power of addiction, and she related that to her uncle who was having problems with alcohol and that kind of thing. So they talk about quite serious things, but if they're able to relate it to them personally somehow, that becomes more engaging. And then we ask them not only to write a speech, but then you have to deliver it quite naturally and extemporaneously. You try to have a conversational tone, which is quite challenging, but I think a good demand to put up on the student to get the sense of conversational English. These speeches can be quite interesting, as I say. And then, as with the juniors, with the past experience, the speeches lead naturally to a good conversation. And the conversation is often quite lively because the student has put a lot of thought into this particular topic. And what impresses me usually is that they're really anxious to talk. They really want to communicate. And that's the essence of what we're trying to get them to do in their learning of English as a second language, is to have that desire to communicate and then to have to find the words in the moment to express, quite subtle ideas and feelings that are not just bits of information, but quite personal kind of ideas and, as I say, feelings that are harder to express, especially in a second language. As anybody knows who's learned a second language, it's the comprehension comes first. You can understand, but to try and put your own thoughts into words is quite another level of mastery of the language. And this is hard for even native speakers to do. So we realize this is a very challenging kind of exam, but it's a very interesting one and really builds on the skills from the primary and junior and leads into the advanced. And that's a quick look at the intermediate exam.
Yeah, I would add to that the students, they are often very passionate about the topics that they take on, wide-ranging topics. Again, I've made note of a few of the very memorable ones over the years. One in the last year or two, they decided to tell the story of the what did they call it? They said, my speech today is about Uruguayan rugby cannibalism, the miracle of the Andes. And this was the story from a few decades ago of the plane crash with the Uruguayan football players on it. Another that stands out in my mind was a person who spoke about cartoons, just the nature of cartoons and graphic novels. And they talked about these things as modes of expression and communication, and they gave examples of some of their favorites. So often they can be expository, other times they're argumentative. I remember a person talking about vaping, okay, to vape or to smoke. That is the question. And this 14-year-old sort of lined up arguments on both sides of that question, and I thought particularly well done. And this kind of social conscience and health conscience that Jim has already referred to. The world is opening up for these 13 and 14-year-olds, and marshaling the words to be able to speak clearly and with an economy of words, and because they've got given 3 to 4 minutes to do this, it's a challenge for many of them, and so many of them do it very well. Okay, well, I think we'll move on here as it's 1:31. This is an example of a prompt card. Jim made note of that. The idea is not to write a speech, memorize it, and deliver it, but organize ideas about a topic and then deliver it in a natural sort of extemporaneous way, and using something like this lovely prompt card that one of the students developed for her speech last year that I examined, and I thought she had done a very nice job. Spoke very easily, moved from one idea into the other using her card. So we'll go on to the advanced. Who wants to? Anyone? You or I or Jim? Who wants to talk about their favorite part of the advanced exam?
Well, I'll start. I would have to say my favorite part of the advanced exam is the whole thing, because at this stage, most of the students have been through all of the previous levels of the exam. Now, they don't have to have done, but a lot of them have. So they really understand how it works. Some of them recognize us from previous years, and they'll say, "Oh, you remember you examined me," and we have a nice little conversation about that. The thing that I really like about this advanced exam is that it is a synthesis of all of the technique that we've been examining and trying to teach over the previous exams as well. So not only is the student presenting a speech, they also have prepared work that they have been working on. They also have the conversation. They also have the sight reading. And generally, our conversations are very in-depth and arise out of the work, or can be just the student themselves really being curious about my world and asking about, what is it like in Canada? What is life for teenagers like in Canada? Is it the same? They want to understand about differences in culture and how how I perceive where they live and how they might perceive where I live. And I really get a sense that students have, on the whole, an excellent command of English at this point, and a real curiosity about the world, in addition to the set elements that we have as part of this exam. I think one of the challenging parts for students with this is the impromptu speech. So, you know, they've had the experience of memorizing a poem, which then has led into the past experience, which has then led to a prepared speech that they are presenting in an impromptu or in an extemporaneous manner. But with the impromptu speech, they get 3-4 topics to choose from 20 minutes before the exam starts, and they need to organize their thoughts and come up with a 4 to 5 minute speech on that topic very, very quickly. And so it's testing their ability to think, their ability to organize, their skill with the language, and then again, their ability to convey the thoughts and ideas that they want to convey in an animated, interesting, and composed manner. And again, it can be very interesting. Is there a slide, Vincent?
With yes, there is actually. Yeah. Here, these are actually represent 2 cards. We carry a number of cards whenever we come to South America. We have a number of cards in our pockets with topics for improvised speeches. We hand them out to people in airports, in addition to in the schools, if they look like they don't have anything to do. And so here's an example of 3 topics. It's nice because we meet the student before we say, Madeline, I'm looking for Madeline here. Pick a card. They can't see what's on the cards. We give them a choice of 6 or 7 cards face down. They choose, and then they go away and pick one of the 3 to speak about. And so this gives you an example of what kinds of topics we are challenging them with.
Mm-hmm.
Well, my favorite part of the exam, I think, as Susan said, was the conversation as well, because you really get to a level here when students are quite fluent. And again, as with the intermediate, I find that they really want to talk. And that they seem to be most engaged in the conversational element, which is perhaps most important in a sense. Mm-hmm. But they really want to communicate their ideas and ask questions, and it's not a simple yes or no answers. There are, as Susan said, they really want to know about us, and they want to know about Canada, and they it turns into a conversation where it can go way off topic sometimes, and can go over time because it gets so engaging to speak with them.
I would also like to address the prepared work that is another requirement for this exam for the advanced students, and with that they have.
Slide. Let's see the next slide, Susan, and then you can speak to. Yeah, there we go.
Okay. Oh yes. So here we are. These are some examples of pieces that students have chosen to memorize and then present as part of their prepared work. And it may have been a while since they've had to do this in this kind of exam situation, and it is an important part of it. As you can see, we have often we have Emma Watson and Greta Thunberg. We also have students will choose contemporary poetry that they're familiar with, and then we have suggestions that we give as well. Last year when I was in Argentina, a lot of the students chose to do excerpts from Richard III, William Shakespeare's play, and I found that really interesting, and it made me very happy because when I would talk to them about, okay, why did you choose to work on this piece? They were saying, well, we've been studying this play in my English class, and I saw that it was on the list of suggested pieces that you provided, and I really wanted to explore what I could do with that. And I find that for the most successful students working with the prepared work, it is a piece that they find appealing for some reason, and then they have taken the time to understand the piece, to memorize the piece, and to work on it. And that usually is a fairly lengthy process for them. You know, it's not really the kind of thing where you can get the piece the week before the exam and memorize it and perform it. It's not going to be at the level that we're looking at. It's usually several weeks of thinking about it, memorizing, working on it, making sure you're accurate, thinking about all of those choices that you have to make in order to convey the thoughts and emotions and ideas to your audience. And again, like, why would we do this? Well, the skills that a student learns by working on memorization of a prepared piece and connecting to the emotion in it is directly transferable to any kind of public speaking work that they might need to do. And we can see the effects of this in their impromptu speech when they're sharing their ideas. So, Vincent?
Yeah, I think that's a good point, Susan. It reminds me as well that once you kind of integrate the piece into yourself, live with that piece for long enough, it takes up residence, or it may take up residence for a long time and come back to you later in life. I was thinking just this past weekend, we had a little family gathering. It's getting close to Christmas, and the piece that came to mind for me was A Child's Christmas in Wales by Dylan Thomas, the Welsh poet. And so I dug out a short excerpt from that and shared that with members of my family. And I hadn't, I'd listened to A Child's Christmas in Wales last Christmas, but it was, an opportunity, a piece that has meant a lot to me in this Christmas, in the lead up to the Christmas season. His voice, his use of language, and the sentiments expressed in that piece. Yeah, and so it does have, these pieces have the ability to change us. I think they can be transformative in some degrees. Jim, anything that you wanted to add?
Well, I concur with all that, and I think there is something to be said to memorize, as you say, to memorize a piece, especially of high quality. To memorize that piece, and so it becomes internal. It becomes something that is connected to you, and it's a good way to learn the language as well, because you get the rhythm and the cadence and the feel of the language that in an interesting way. So yes,
yeah, you're really living inside the language in a
right.
way. The memory work has been done. Now you're confident, and you can experiment, and you can try different things with the text. Yeah. Okay, I think time is moving on here. Let's here's some of the examples of other examples of prepared work. We have a syllabus that we've created for teachers as a resource to help in the selection of a good piece of poetry or prose, a monologue, a speech, and so there are a number of ones that already exist in the collection that teachers could avail themselves, teachers and students could avail themselves of. As I say, the choice of the material, the individual choosing it, it's an important matching process. And let's go on. I'll just say a few things, give you a couple of some examples of the sight reading and why bother sight reading. What's the advantage of sight reading? Jim or Susan want to talk just a little bit about why is it a valuable skill or ability to have in a second language or in a first language for that matter?
Well, I'm always a big proponent of sight reading with my own students as well as when I'm examining. I really believe that sight reading is an important skill. The first element of it is comprehension. If you're reading a piece for the first time, and then you're sharing it with an audience immediately, you have to have a certain level of comprehension in order to be able to do that. The second thing that I really find important about sight reading is being able to make those quick decisions about what the meaning of the words on the page are and how to translate that from the page to the audience through yourself as the interpreter. Again, these are skills that we need in conversation. They're skills that we need in public speaking. And sight reading, usually our pieces are taken from a novel or some kind of storybook. And it provides a much more immediate access for students of all ages to be able to make those quick decisions and understand what they're reading and how to convey it.
Yeah, how to share that, how to share that piece of text with a listener, whether that's one person or a group of people in a room.
Mm-hmm.
It's also a reminder to students that the whole point of language is to communicate, not just facts, but you got ideas and feelings and nuances. And if the student is able to quickly pick up on the tone of the piece and the style, that shows a high level of comprehension that goes beyond comprehending the actual words in the story. So it's quite demanding.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's have a look at the intermediate, just a kind of example of some intermediate sight reading to give you our participants an idea of the kind of language. You can see, I think, it advances and grows a little bit more complex as we move into sight reading for the older students. And then conversation, I think conversation really, the whole exam in some ways is an extended opportunity to have a conversation of a special nature with a student. I think that's how I see those 10, 12, 15, 20-minute units of time that we get to spend with each of the students. There are conversation elements at the beginning and the end, and then there are things that we want to talk about. We want to talk about your poem. We want to hear you tell us about some aspect of your life, something important in a formal speech. And what have you chosen as an advanced student? What have you found interesting? Memorable? Why have you chosen? Who are you, and what are these pieces that you've chosen? I think it's an exploration as well as a conversation. And so here we have this is an example of from 2016. It may have changed a little bit, but this is the examination sheet for an advanced student. They receive a mark for each part of the examination, and then usually comments often spill over onto the back of the back of this page, and each of the students at all 4 levels gets an exam sheet report. And then we have also just I'll show you in the next slide, Dardo, we'll show this is just the beginning of the rather substantial report that we prepare each year for the schools that we've been examiners at. And I think any comments from Susan or Jim here? This is here's a love in at the end of the exams at Woodside School in 2013. Some of the kids seem to have enjoyed whatever it was we were doing there. They're a very enthusiastic crowd, these kids. So I think
that's the thing about the exams. The students tend to
it's funny
seem to really enjoy it. Yeah,
so enthusiastic about those exams.
They come in all nervous, but they go out quite enthused.
Yeah. So I think, Edgardo, now we've got, time for some questions here.
Yes, we have some questions, and I also wanted to add to your great presentation about the exam that we often forget, and nowadays we have less oral exams like in universities or in high school, and I think this is an opportunity for students, also primary students, to get the idea of how it is to be with an international examiner, with a foreigner examiner, and to have that experience if he or she is going to live abroad or to have more exams, international exams, as they grow older. And I think this path from primary, junior, intermediate, and advanced is a great career to get themselves their self-esteem and get themselves also their skills to do this, because I think it's very important to have a conversation when you're little with a foreign examiner, and I think that is very valuable for parents and also for teachers. That also the idea is not to give them extra work, but to incorporate these texts and ideas and past experience to their day-to-day curriculum, in order for the students to be more confident at the time of receiving you. And also, it's more than exam. It's also a friendly visit. That what you were saying from the students from Uruguay, that they wait for you, and from Argentina every year. We have a question by Miss Viviana. Does it have an official certification?
Yes, it does. What would you say, Edgardo? I think it has. Each of the students receive a certificate along with the report, the exam report of how well they've done, and interesting notes that the examiners have made. What would you say, Edgardo? Is this an official certification?
Yeah, it's an official certification from ISA. That is an international organization that it's been in education since 1951. It has consultative status to UNESCO, and also it was one of the think tanks that make the PYP and the MYP in Cambridge, and it was first called the ISA curriculum back in the 70s and also last year was the 25 years of PYP. So in that sense, ISA has been working in the different curriculums and in different exams. And also, as you were saying, the thing is that the student have the tools and the skills to go through university and to go through their path into high school, to afterwards have more exams like Cambridge or the IPC. There are a lot of international curriculums that it depends on the community and on the education of it on each country. Some countries have public education that they have to follow the national curriculum as long as the international curriculum. But I think it's very interested and it has the certification of ISA that's very important. So we have more questions here.
Sure.
Clarissa says this exam is a great way to gain self-confidence. Also, students who struggle in writing or grammar often do great in their presentations. We had such great experiences with these kinds of students.
I think that's quite true, Edgardo. One of the things some of the feedback that we get from teachers is that they're often surprised at which students are doing really well in the oral English exam, because from their perspective, they may not be as strong at writing or those more technical aspects of learning English, but we're looking at how does a person communicate and how can they really convey their ideas and the thoughts that are going through their heads. And so often the teachers are well, they're always really happy, of course, when a student's done very well, but often it can be surprising. I also think the benefit of having these 4 exams and going through them, starting at a very young age, it sort of demystifies the process a little bit, right? So that you're not all of a sudden at the end of high school facing other types of exams and you've never had this experience before. And having the opportunity to do it within the school situation, because we go to the schools to do the exams, they're able to have an experience of, oh, this could be a very stressful situation, but then they learn, okay, I can actually handle this, and I know what to expect, and I have got some positive feedback from that. So, yeah.
Yeah, I agree that it's very important, the oral part. And sometimes the students, or at least what happened here in Argentina, they speak better and more formally in English than in Spanish because they have all this structure and all this preparation, and it's very tough for them to go at the end of their school year of the school stage to an interview and speak with protocol and well. We have more questions. No, just a comment from Clarissa. I hear thanks to the ISA team who have been a great support even this year in which we hadn't got the opportunity of counting on your presence face to face. Also, we have another question about which is the difference or why is better this exam, comparing it with other primary and intermediate exams, for example, Cambridge or other exams that they are there in the educational community.
I think, Edgardo, you maybe have more experience with those Cambridge exams than certainly I do. I don't know if it's something you can talk to.
Yes. Well, I think, as I was saying before, that the thing is the continuity and the experience and the different stages that the student is gaining, first with the conversation, then with the past experience, then with preparing the speech. And I think it's very personal with the student and with the different schools. I think the other exams are standardized exams, and these exams, even though they have a standard and a syllabus, I think they are more personal, and the students can have a different kind of experience, also receiving international examiners than going to a institute and just do the exam or record it or do a standardized exam that has been on for several years. I think the evolution of the exam and the adaptability to the new kinds of education and the new kinds of things that are happening in the world is the distinctive part of the exam, comparing to Trinity or Cambridge or first certificate, etc., etc., etc. I think it's much more the experience and the quality of you as an examiners and of the exams itself that give the students much more skills and capabilities for the future. Let's see, we have more questions. Well, we are arriving to our last 3 minutes of this great conversation. I don't know if you have some final remarks, if waiting for some last questions, but we don't have any more questions.
I guess I would just reiterate that, yeah, the acquisition of a second language, there is vocabulary and pronunciation and grammar, and then on top of that, this suite of exams presents an opportunity for the kids to develop that fluent communication that is based partly in literature, based partly in an understanding of conversation and thinking on your feet, organizing your thoughts in a way. And again, I think these are skills that gradually acquired through the course of one's first school education, those first 10 or 12 years. And I think it can provide some tools for lifelong learning here.
I agree with you, Vincent. Well, we don't have any more questions, so I would like to thank you very much to the three of you.
Thank you.
And it was very clear and very schematic, all the different parts of the exam and the examples. And I think teachers and also directors can have an idea of what this is about and why is the importance and the benefit of having it. Also, this will be and will stay on our YouTube channel for you to consult it whenever you want, and also you can contact me or ISA in order to have more information about this. So thank you very much, and let's hope to see you in another ISA webinar in the near future. Thank you very much.
Thank
you,
Ricardo.